That day marked the 30th anniversary party of the prime contractor company. The director of the company, Steve Harris, seemingly saw right through me who felt out of place, and relentlessly mocked me. My timid self couldn't talk back. Just as I was silent, my wife Annie right beside me grabbed him by the chest and confronted him. He was unyielding Annie and continued to look down on us. The figure of Annie annoyed by his attitude made me anxious that she might do something outrageous. Then, she pulled an envelope from her bag. Steve had a triumphant look without even seeing the contents, but he changed his attitude the next day and kept apologizing to us. Then, as found out who I really was, he became so disheartened that he seemed to lose all his strength, as if a gust of wind could blow him away. It's true what they say about the right person for the right job. I realized how things can change significantly depending on one's position. My name is Sonny Davis. Despite my name, I've always preferred roles behind the scenes, like being in the shadows. At the age of 48, I find myself in the role of CEO of a company, a position far from the world I prefer. Marrying Annie, whose family runs a company, I became part of her family's business. The company I led as CEO mainly takes subcontracting work for interior construction. Becoming the representative of a long-established company that has been around for over 50 years felt like a heavy burden, and I felt it was too much for me, but I became the successor to meet the expectations of my father-in-law. Since becoming CEO, I've successfully expanded our branches and strive to be a company beloved by the local community. Having dealt with many companies over the years, taking over this company from Annie's grandfather made me feel the heavy responsibility of carrying on the family and company history. Nonetheless, I find pride and fulfillment in my role as a reliable support for many corporations. Our main client, a large construction company, has a strong relationship with us due to the large scale of their orders. They have been using our company as a subcontractor since they started, making us comrades in arms who support each other. That famous corporation owns many companies, both large and small, and continues to expand its business beyond our state. The company's name, often heard in TV commercials, is well known to locals of all ages. The former director named George Fisher had a long friendship with Annie's grandfather, who was the founder, and was practically best friends. Upon George's retirement, a young employee was promoted to director. His name is Steve Harris. He is only 38 but talented enough to be entrusted with such a significant role. Initially, I thought he must be a capable person.
Hey, what's up, man?
I felt something was off with his overly casual approach, but since he was the director of a long-standing partner company, I suppressed my feelings and didn't argue. However, that might have been a mistake. His attitude became increasingly arrogant, and before I knew it, he started talking down to me in a commanding tone.
Hey man, about that estimate the other day, that was unacceptable. We've had a long relationship, right? You understand, okay?
His unreasonable demands and dismissive attitude towards our requests infuriated me. With the former director George gone, I had no one to consult, and all I could do was offer small acts of resistance without upsetting Steve too much.
Huh? Who do you think you're talking to? Don't get cocky. We're doing you a favor by using your company as a subcontractor. Make sure you understand that, okay?
His arrogant attitude to look down on us just because he was the prime contractor made me wish I could sever our relationship and start over. At one point, a major ordering mistake was discovered in a public project undertaken by the prime contractor company, which led to a significant loss for my company. Although the construction company suffered considerable damages, my company managed to avoid losses by diverting work elsewhere. Just as I was feeling relieved, I received a furious complaint from Steve.
Hey, what are you going to do about this? We took on a public project together, and now we've suffered a huge loss. How are you planning to take responsibility?
Even if you say that. Our company was able to avoid losses through other orders, so technically, you shouldn't have suffered a huge loss either.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Upon reviewing the construction estimates again, I noticed his name on them. There were revisions from the initial project cost, but many details seemed unnatural. The suspicious additional budget made me wonder if there was embezzlement. Well, this doesn't match the original plan at all, does it? There's no way to handle it.
Don't mess with me. That will make me look bad. Take responsibility and compensate with your company.
He raised his voice and hung up immediately after his one-sided demands. Unable to tolerate his tyrannical behavior any longer, I consulted with Annie.
Okay, I see. But that company has been a partner since my grandfather's time, and if that director is gone, things will go back to normal, I think.
With a sigh and a troubled look, her words left me sighing too. All I could do was enduring the situation by thinking it was only for now. Following that, mistakes caused by Steve became more frequent, and any attempt to clarify was met with responses that somehow twisted things to make me seem at fault, leaving no room for argument. One day, amidst such ongoing issues, I was invited to the construction company's anniversary party. Of course, it wasn't Steve who invited me, but another acquaintance. The company was celebrating its 30th anniversary, which was a significant milestone, and it seemed there would be a complete changeover of executives, including the CEO. With the change in leadership, I hoped the company's direction would shift. Potentially it would free us from Steve's troublesome behavior. With that hope in mind, Annie and I headed to the party venue. The venue that gathered branch managers and other executives from various regions was enveloped in a lavish atmosphere, and I couldn't help but shrink back to feel out of place. As I looked around uneasily, Steve came over arrogantly. Seeing me behaving suspiciously, he started berating me from a position of superiority.
Why is a mere subcontractor like you here? Do you even realize how important today's party is?
Irritated by his haughty demeanor, Annie snapped back.
Excuse me. Who do you think you are? Today's party is to celebrate the hard work of the employees, isn't it? You have no right to act all high and mighty.
Perhaps for Annie, as she hates dishonesty, she already irked just by the sight of Steve seeming useless despite his airs. Although I tried to calm down and about to explode Annie, which sent shivers down my spine. Despite the situation, Steve maintained his arrogant attitude to look down on us with confidence.
After all, you're just playing at the bottom rung. You and your wife are out of place. You'd better leave for your own good.
After downing his glass in one go, with a smug look, he handed me the glass as if assigning me a task. What's this?
You really don't get it, do you? It's my kindness to give you some work today since you're so useless.
Annie, who was furious at his words, shrugged off my restraining hand, and grabbed him by the collar. In that helpless situation, my knees trembled in despair. I rushed to stop her, fearing she would land a powerful blow on Steve's face. However, in the next moment, she pulled out a brown envelope from her handbag she had been carrying, and thrust it toward Steve's face instead of her fist.
Could you call the CEO? I'm going to cancel the contracts with all 70 group companies.
She spoke with unexpected calm, but her expression was as fierce as if she were wearing a mask of beast. Letting go of Steve, she pulled my arm and headed outside the venue. Standing next to her taking a deep breath outside, I called the friend who had invited me to the anniversary party. Tyler. I'm sorry, but we've run into a bit of trouble and have to leave suddenly.
Is that so? I don't know what happened, but that's really too bad. I was hoping we could have a good chat after such a long time.
I'm really sorry for today, especially since it was such an important day. The person sounding disappointed on the other end of the phone was my friend, Tyler Nelson. Tyler and I have been friends since our college days and shared many experiences together, which makes him an important person in my life. I knew he was also planning to attend the same anniversary party on that day. However, only with Steve around, it was inevitable that Annie's anger would boil over in an instant, like a kettle on the brink of whistling. The next morning, earlier than when the employees usually arrive, Steve suddenly burst into my company with looking frantic.
I am terribly sorry for what happened.
Witnessing what must have been his first attempt at an early morning apology, I was so stunned that I froze on the spot. Annie also had been watching that nearby, and spit out her coffee and burst into laughter.
What's that? Don't make me laugh so early in the morning. Oh my goodness.
Unlike her laughing hysterically, I was bewildered and panicked by Steve's bizarre behavior, unable to comprehend what was happening. What in the world happened?
Well, yes, let me explain.
Look straight into my eyes. He began to explain what had transpired after we left the previous day. Speaking in a shaky voice, it seemed he was almost fired on the spot by the new CEO who got enraged by our departure. Did you give that envelope to the new CEO yesterday?
I did, but I didn't know that the contents of that envelope were so crucial to the company.
As he remained frozen, Annie explained the significance of our work. Originally, the founder of the construction company Steve worked for was an employee of the subcontracting company started by Annie's grandfather. Given this long history, as the subcontractor, my company has been handling almost all the necessary operations for the construction company's projects as a prime contractor. When the construction company was just starting, it managed to continue its operations smoothly thanks to Annie's grandfather, who as a subcontractor, took on all the challenging related construction work from both private requests and public projects. Over these 30 years, the construction company has remained the backbone of the industry, and is continuing to take on even the most troublesome projects as a subcontractor. When Steve first realized our true positions, his face looked contorting and turning totally pale. As if he was about to vanish from this world, Annie added as if to deliver the final blow.
By the way, he is actually my husband's best friend. You know, the new CEO Tyler, okay?
Excuse me. Is that really true?
Steve stuttered with trembling with fear, to which I nodded slightly. We go way back, and he's what you'd call a best friend. I attended yesterday's party wanting to celebrate his appointment as the new CEO. After all, he was the one who sent me the invitation. Tyler and I had a good relationship since our college days and even joined the same company after becoming professionals. It was because of him that we could compete and improve as rivals among new employees. I cherish those times as wonderful memories. I never expected Tyler would choose this construction company when he decided to change jobs. After I took over Annie's company, he accumulated many achievements, eventually leading to his promotion as the new CEO.
That's why, he said.
Steve seemed to realize something, his shoulders drooping as if his soul had left his body. As he was sinking into despair, meanwhile Annie still laughing uproariously. Furthermore, while I was in a state of panic, Tyler suddenly showed up. He had come after hearing about Steve's rampage but was slightly surprised to see him standing upright and motionless. Tyler sighed softly, patted my shoulder, and showed a troubled smile.
Good to see you. Never thought we'd meet under these circumstances.
Tyler.
Steve turned towards him, cautiously. At that moment, Tyler's face tensed, his brows furrowed deeply, and he gave Steve a sharp glare. Trembling with fear, Steve averted his gaze and remained frozen, staring at the floor.
Sonny, I'm really sorry about all this. I've heard what happened. Annie, you too, sorry for the trouble.
It was a huge hassle, really. But well, it gave me a good laugh this morning, so I guess I'm over it.
Annie joked with a refreshed smile, turning to Tyler.
I heard you admire someone.
Yes, I do. But I've never met that person.
It's someone you're very familiar with.
Tyler hinted, but I was clueless, though it was clear Steve was puzzled.
A legendary figure during his college days, you know. I can't think of who it might be.
Tyler sighed again and pointed at me.
The person you admire is actually this guy.
What? Are you serious?
Steve had spoken highly of someone from time to time, but since I hadn't paid attention, I had no recollection of it. That person had started a business while in college, securing contracts from many companies and generating remarkable profits. The name alone became famous, and soon enough, even current and former students referred to him as a legendary holder. In short, I was that person during my college days. Though I credit my achievements to the help of George, the former sales director of the prime contractor, as well as Steve's predecessor. That's why I never spoke much about it openly. Nonetheless, Steve had developed an admiration for me based on rumors, even though he hadn't realized it was me due to my name change after marriage.
Is that really true?
Yes, technically, it is. Upon learning my true identity, Steve suddenly started crying, and inexplicably, began to pray with hands clasped together. Watching that, Annie somehow managed to look both smug and delighted. Steve was stunned, and stared at me so intently. It sent shivers down my spine. What's up?
Well, I can see you and Tyler are really close.
Well, yeah, he's pretty much like a brother in arms to me.
Tyler laughed off, while Steve nodded but seemed not fully convinced, tilting his head slightly. Perhaps the brother-in-arms explanation was a bit hard to grasp. I added a bit more to Tyler's story. Not only have Tyler and I been friends for a long time, but he also supported me in the venture that led me to be called the legendary holder. My accomplishments can't be talked about without mentioning him. It is embarrassing to say it myself, but he is more than a precious friend to me.
Well, that's the gist of it. Basically, I'm the storyteller who had a front row seat to his achievements.
It's not just that, right? I don't know anyone as capable as you, Tyler.
When Annie talks about me, she brags about it like it's her own. Even she seems to hold Tyler in high esteem, so she speaks proudly as if she were talking about her own accomplishments.
After all, Sonny was the one consulting for that prime contractor company.
Don't tell me. Are you the mastermind behind that company turnaround I heard about, by chance?
Oh, I believe that was me. After taking over Annie's company and doubling its profits, I was recommended by George and also took on the role of a management consultant for the prime contractor. Knowing Tyler was excelling as an executive there, I collaborated with him, reminiscing about our college days, and we successfully tripled the size of the prime contractor. With Tyler's appointment as CEO, it was decided that my company would take on subcontracting for all 70 group companies. Of course, it involved working with subcontractors and related companies, but the profits were incomparable to before. Steve seemed to understand after hearing my story, his shoulders slumped, looking lost in thought. As a result, he had made enemies not only with me but also with Annie, who sat as the chairperson of the subcontracting company. Consequently, he was not only demoted but placed on immediate suspension, with a decision for his termination to follow after a holding period. Feeling sorry for the thoroughly defeated Steve, I introduced him to one of the subcontractors benefiting from our recent business expansion. Facing a shortage of manpower, the subcontractor was thrilled to acquire a worker like Steve. Managing all 70 group companies was challenging, but the business began to show results within a year. When the new ventures were smoothly underway, Steve unexpectedly showed up at my company.
Long time no see. How are you doing, sir?
Steve got accustomed to the work of a subcontractor to do both sales and field work, and had changed from his previous arrogant demeanor to unexpectedly humble. His flattering sales pitch was reportedly popular, and according to the president of the subcontractor, his excellent sales skills greatly contributed to the company. As the group business Tyler and I worked on together settled down, I received a call from the former director George to invite me out for a meal for the first time in a while. Over drinks, George suddenly turned serious and made an unexpected proposal.
I'm thinking of starting something new. Want to join me?
Delighted by the invitation from him I admire, I eagerly joined the new venture. However, when he mentioned needing a young person with sales skills, Steve's face flashed in my mind. On a whim, I consulted with the subcontractor, and they happily agreed to let him go, thanks to the new recruits he had trained showing great promise.
Can I really work with you?
Steve asked, tears of joy in his eyes as we shook hands firmly. There's a saying about the right person for the right job, and it seems he shines brightest when he's near the person he admires. Thanks to George, and notably Steve's efforts, the new venture quickly took off, continuously increasing its orders. While Steve's admiring gaze felt blinding, I knew I had to live up to his expectations. Leading people isn't easy, but Steve's presence has made me reflect on how I'm perceived by others, feeling like I've grown a bit more.